Now we will have a presentation from our public relations firm. Mr. Brian Burgess here to present some information for us. Welcome, sir.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to take over the screen. If you will give me a moment.
You got it?
It appears.
It came up and then it left. Now it's back to you. There it goes.
There we go. All right, we're here. Thank you, Council, for permitting me two things: the chance to come here and the privilege of working with your team for the past 9 months. I love it here, and I think with the conversations I've had with many of you and staff, and a lot of you know that already. So we'll get started on this. My goal is to not take a lot of time in the presentation, but to also answer your questions. And if you have any thoughts in the middle of this, don't hesitate to stop. So we started out this in March 2025, and I came on board with some specific deliverables and some specific needs. We started with a 3-month pilot from March through May, and then we renewed in June and kind of kept things open from there. And one of the things that was requested from city staff and council was a comprehensive communications guide. And that is something we delivered on September 1st. And that includes 9 specific items that we spent about 3 months putting together. It's a full comprehensive media relations policies and procedures. That includes the people who are our spokespeople, what topics they talk about, who you go to if you have an interview, a whole bunch of core messaging, the things we say when asked, and the things we don't say at all. Boilerplate, which sounds a bit monotonous, but it's the thing we say at the end of every press release, which we did not have before. Interview techniques, and what I put in as my media coaching content. Sample media content, and that includes public statements. Examples include statements that would be used for police actions, or emergencies, or hazards, or celebrations. We have a full comprehensive media database, which includes everything locally and then regionally, so Metro Detroit and Lansing as well. And then a public official contact database, social media triage, and a brand standards manual for the city, which we had never had before. We have a nice logo, we have colors that we use, but no one actually had that organized yet, so we brought that all together. Also, the request of this council, in particular our former mayor, was an update to the Howell Wikipedia page. This was a pain point for several years. And we were able to go into the Wikipedia, and you'll notice now, instead of starting out with a really brief history and then jumping into some incredibly negative moments in the city, we actually put the history into context, the accurate context, all based on Howell Archives, public records, in particular the library, Livingston Daily, Livingston Post, and other publicly accessible information. So everything's cited in there, and we started doing that over the summer, and it has held up to Wikipedia standards, which is great. We've been producing materials based on the need. Several public statements since March, there are 8. 6 press releases for events or other purposes or needs. Again, that boilerplate. We've done about 14 interviews that we directly coordinated on behalf of city council, city staff, and then we built that core messaging out. So those were done very, very early, and then obviously they're statements, press releases as the year progressed. In terms of why I'm here, we'll have to go back to 2024 before we came on. We did an analysis from August 24 to February 25 to really look at public perception. What is the why? A lot of it was anecdotal. If you go to the original RFP that I responded to, my team and I actually went into that to understand what was actually going on here. And you saw a radical shift in that period toward national negative attention for the city. That was driven by a single story thread, political protests, events, cited white supremacist demonstrations, and all of that resulted in a net negative awareness, placing it at an all-time high, and reinforcing stereotypes regionally about the city of Howell. So if we kind of look at the sentiment in 24 versus what we've been doing in 2025, you can start to see the shift that we've brought together. So 2024 is about a 45% net positive overall for the year. We'll get into that specific section that we benchmarked against. Neutral for 24 was around 30%, 25% negatives. If we fast forward to what we've done the past year, a positive is up about 22% to 55, neutrals are up about 16%, and then most importantly, our negatives are down 60%. So our strategic plan invested heavily in media relationships. That was predominantly our goal, and then partnering with the city staff to help align social engagement and social media content. These investments resulted in that net increase in positive media coverage and social media discussions, reflecting strong local pride. The overall tone of 2025 was positive and neutral. We could start to see some feedback on this. This was actually from the email that came to Mayor Herdrick with regards to the work and the relationship that we've built with journalists here. This is from Terrence Friday and at CBS Detroit. We've been working very closely with one of the reporters, Howell, and it's very obvious that Howell's been working hard to change its narrative. Howell has consistently showcased the wonderful things happening in our community, and local achievements and events to the people who make Howell such a great place to live and work. Her coverage has helped reshape the city's image, bringing well-deserved attention to its progress and positive spirit. This doesn't happen without really strong relationships, and in particular, feeding this journalist with really great stories. This is what they want. This is what we were called to do, and it's really great to have recognition from the news desk and the news office in Detroit that this is what we're trying to do. So the key perception drivers that help us get this to the point where we are today is focusing in particular on downtown growth and community identity. Downtown is a point of pride, and we really just embraced that as much as possible to tell that story about Howell. Civic engagement and local governance, that all of you, the city staff, great work. Mostly neutral, but that's fine. Very few negatives, which is great. Quality of life and services, that's again, what are we doing for people in the city and what can be seen outside? And a lot of that has been done with things like Fire and Ice, what's been done at Schofield Park, embracing the life that we have here and seeing how great people of Howell live. And then finally, the social media environment. And that has a lot to do with what Kim has done. She and I partnered on content, kind of create a calendar, and then we decide what we want to post in a particular day or particular week. That's really been her responsibility, and she's just excelled at it. And it's great to have a partner on that end that aligns with the stuff that I'm doing with the media and kind of the larger strategic messaging. So in terms of a further breakdown of this audit, we went through quarters because it's an easy way to kind of compartmentalize and package things. So that Q4 of 24 was really where we were hitting our most negatives. Some of that bled into Q1 of 2025, and so you'll see that high negative point. And you saw a little bit of that with some statements that were made, was alluded to earlier in public comment, things that happened in council chambers, and kind of our stride hitting in that April and May. In May, we had the groundbreaking for Fire and Ice and the announcement of Schofield Park and everything that's happening there. And that led into what I call kind of a rock and roll summer of just unmitigated public positive statements about the city. A story every month, an event every month, something every month happening that made us look good, not just the people who live here, but the people outside of here. And that was part of the plan all along. Swarm and destroy this negative idea that Howell somehow someplace bad. It is good. It is inherently good. And the people who live here know it, and the people who come here learn it very, very quickly. And so we had that radical shift in negative to positive comments, both online and in the media itself. So by the end of quarter 3, we were seeing about 80% positive news coverage. All summer, it was hard to actually find a negative news piece. And then in Q4, what we saw is a little bit of a shift. And this is I have this all in a full report as well, a narrative. But you can kind of see where that happened. And some of that was related to some things that were said before and following the election. It had very little to do with what city staff were doing, with the city's actions, but that had a negative impact on city perception. That's not much we could do about that, but we just have to find a way to mitigate and reduce it as much as possible. So, recommendations. In terms of programming for 2026, talk about what we've done here. What worked well was we promoted events to people in places regionally. We took what we do here, we packaged it, and we sold it to people, particularly these people outside of this immediate area. We invested in long-term regional media relationships, and that has proven out to pay out with dividends. Leveraging downtown as the emotional center of Howell's brand, and then maintaining that consistent social media presence. In terms of opportunities, I know we've done really great work, but there's always room to be better. We should be doing more productive narrative framing around city growth and infrastructure. There's a lot of opportunities in 2026 to do that. We have Fire and Ice grand opening coming very soon. We have the Motorsports Center. We have the potential for things like the ring road to actually happen. I know that's probably a controversial thing to say, but as we saw this weekend with the truck hitting the pole, we really need to see some movement there. And there's room for the city to take a position on traffic and things like that. A story every month. I brought this up back in June when I was working directly with her and with Kim. This is how we get things moving forward. We have an event almost every month during the summer and into the fall. And we should be leveraging that and that type of idea all throughout the year. Early and clear communications, issues of public interest. Just making sure that we're upfront with everyone with what's going on in the city as soon as quickly as possible. And then convert high civic engagement into a two-way dialogue and have that structured as much as possible. So that is my report, and I am here to answer any of your questions.
Thank you very much, sir. So at this time, we'll open it up to council to ask questions, comments. We'll end up talking about any kind of contract extensions at a later date. Tonight, we're just going to be talking about Verge and their services and ask the questions that we have. So with that, who's got a question?
Could you go back to the last, sorry. Could you go back to the last page, number 4, item number 4? Could you tell me what you mean by convert high civic engagement into structured two-way dialogue? I don't understand that.
Yeah, I'm talking about mostly online.
I'm sorry?
Online
Got
engagement.
it, okay.
So what we do right now is we try to put in as much really great content, and then allow the comments to kind of flow through. Kim being only one person, and myself being only one other person, there's limits to the time that she spends online. We can have someone plugged in 24/7 and try and keep up. I don't know if that's the most productive, but we have to find a way to really make a strong dialogue online.
So a question for you, as the new guy on council, is it correct that you spend every Monday here in the city, or at least you try to come into the city at least once a week?
Yes.
Okay, could you walk us through what that day looks like for you when you're here, and whether you're here in the city or where you go and what you do around the city to engage with the community?
I usually get here around 10:30. I try to have a meeting with Kim first thing, catch up, things that are going on, things that we need to address. We discuss any immediate events that happen over the weekend. We plan out news events for the week, anything and requests from council, from staff. I try to find time with Christy, or at the time with her, to sit down and talk through her priorities, into communications or any red flags that need to be addressed. And then I try to find time to just work through scanning any media and news. For the summer, I was actually trying to get coffee with one particular reporter, and knows a lot about that. I spent quite a bit of time all summer going around getting visual footage, camera footage, drone footage, just video and content that we could come up with. Spoke with quite a few people, business owners, trying to find stories from them in particular. So it was different every week and every day. Sometimes I'd just be in the office, just kind of working through written materials, content, writing plans, things like that.
And where did you get your data from? So you're mentioning that, you know, in Q1, or we had negative rate, perception. Where are you pulling this data from, and where are you getting those metrics, and where are they coming from?
So I pull, we used to do this for a lot of the launches that I did for kind of controversial products. And so what we do is we take all the news coverage, and then we would analyze it and then rank it as a positive, neutral, or a negative piece. So it is qualitative data, and then we would place some level of analytics attached to it. And then that way it would be all sorted. So I did that in this case. So I went through every media story that I could find online. I mentioned the city of Howell, with other mentions of Howell excluded, most notably. The biggest story about Howell, by the way, was the data center, which has nothing to do with us. So looking through and sorting through all of that took quite a bit of time and effort.
So back when we started this relationship, we talked about this being a long-term goal that we needed to work towards. Do you feel, I mean, I remember 3 years was before we were going to see even the needle start to move in a somewhat consistent manner. It looks like some metrics that you're able to pull together, we've seen a large shift because we've had some pretty good prevailing winds. Do you feel like we've even started that long-term plan yet on us changing that sentiment or perception of our community? And then before you answer that question, the other one is, what challenges do you see or have you had with working with us? I mean, we're all independent individuals. We all have our own message. Has one message seemed to work with all of us, or has you been trying to keep us all together as a group?
I'll start with your first question, because I think that's a really important question to ask. What you're seeing here that I'm presenting is very much a short-term execution. When we talk about long-term, we're talking about cities. We're talking about changing generational ideas. The ideas that we're struggling with right now started literally 60 years ago. And so changing that level of generational identity requires generational thinking. We're just starting and scratching the surface. I'm really enthusiastic about what we've accomplished in 1 year, but when you go outside, there's still a lot of people who will spit back at us. Hey, the things that I heard about what my grandfather told me about how my parents did, that's what I still understand. And so we still have to reach more and more people. And so that would be my argument. Like, we started it, we've made a lot of progress, but we still have a lot of work to do. And that's what I committed to when I started this. I said it wasn't going to be easy, it wasn't going to happen overnight. Again, I'm happy, but always cautious on this. Your second point, I have loved working with this team. It's hard for me. There used to be a bet, like how excited would I be when I came into the office here? And I think there was a bingo card. Did Brian sing when he came in this morning? And usually I did, because I'm really enthusiastic about being here. I park my car up at the county building usually, because that's where the charging station is. I have an electric car, for better or for worse. And then I get to walk through downtown, which is awesome. And I love walking down Clinton, because it's the most it's just the coolest street. There's all these weird little people, windows, and people people's homes, and I just get to, kind of gawk at the properties here. I get to get coffee. All summer I was trying to find a new place to eat dinner or eat lunch. Just engaging with people that way and kind of understanding the social fabric was a lot of fun. So I really love being here, and the staff is so great. If I could make one comment, one most challenging thing I've had, and I told him that when he retired, was Irv kind of throwing that, I don't know what to call it, but he just kind of threw me for a loop. Like all of a sudden, he's like, hey, I'm retiring. I'm like, oh, okay. So of all the things that I struggled with was just working through that. In the end, it was fine. We got lucky with Christy. She's a remarkable person to have in this leadership role. And I really am grateful because she's placed a huge amount of trust into myself and into him. And I couldn't be more thrilled. I think, like all, we happen to be in 2025 an election year, and so with that came some places where I can't go, and I was always curious because I have a tendency to be a political animal, and I just had to remind myself, like, stay out of it. But I loved every second of this past year, and the privilege to work with the staff and all of you.
So a follow-up, I do remember this, and I do agree with you, we do have this generational mindset that we have to either rewrite or overwrite. It seems to me like a weekly, monthly, yearly plan is somewhat forming. Is it an award of attrition that we're hoping to use to change that? Or I know you don't have the silver bullet. I don't know what other tools and mechanisms that you can give our community. Are you holding anything in the wings? Have you seen anything? I don't expect you to really have this answer, but is it an attrition war that we're in, I guess, essentially?
It's a consistency war.
Consistency.
So one of the things that I came into this saying very astutely, that you win this, whatever you call it, a war, you win it with consistency. And that's what we've attempted to do. We're much more consistent online with social media, and we're much more consistent with the relationships with media and the output from the city. So I will say that's how you win. It's not so much attrition. You're not going to be rid of everything. Right? Like, there's things that just pop up, and we have to figure out a way to deal with it. There has to be times that we say something and we make a very practical statement, and there's times when we keep our powder dry and we don't say anything. We allow the actions of the city to take responsibility more than just our words. So in the end, I think it's consistency over time, and that started in this past 9 months.
I like your comment about, you talked about sometimes we keep our powder dry and we don't say anything,
Right.
and we let our community speak for itself. Are there ways that you can think that we can easily identify those situations so that when these high-intensity emotional situations come across, and we all would like to react, and our community wants us to react, that we decide to not react or to let it play out?
It's partly because we've done our best to permit some level of triage. I can't predict, and I can't tell you like everyone is the same. I will say this, and this is a commonality in a lot of, it's just a behavior of groups, is most are looking for action, or some level of attention, or some level of, they want to be elevated. And in as much as we as an organization have attempted to utilize the credibility of journalists to achieve our goals, some groups want to use the credibility of this organization to legitimize their own actions and try to use this place as some whatever their own war is that's happening. And I think the challenge we have is, when do we give that legitimacy? When do we acknowledge that? Do we want to elevate those people? Or do we want to find ways to eliminate them without causing any type of public attention to it?
Actually, I'm really glad, because how can we really say that it was because of something that Brian Birch did, or whether it was something that we just didn't say or didn't do that caused our numbers?
Well, so I can't, hindsight is 20/20.
I know.
And that is 100% true. That said, you know, we had the potential for a flashpoint the last couple weeks.
Right.
And rather than see that get much bigger and draw more attention, there was one story from WLNS, and that was it. There was barely a peep about it online. And I will say this, that the attention-seeking behaviors of those organizations, they wanted the reaction from you.
Right.
Like they wanted, and this is where counseling and supporting Christy in some cases, and kind of putting my own, diminishing my own role in some of this stuff, said, I don't have to write something out here. We're prepared if we need to, but we don't have to say something at all times. And that's just the truth of being strategic with communications.
That's the truth of public relations. Sometimes it's better not to say anything at all.
So I think this is where I disagree with some of the sentiments that are currently being said. I get and I understand that it's better sometimes not to say anything, but I feel like I would love to see what, if we were to say something, what does that look like?
Yes.
How do we prepare? Because sometimes there are instances where we need to be very quick to action when something occurs, and I would love to see what that actually looks like. Like, I understand that the prevailing thought is let's not put fuel to the fire, but from when I wasn't on council, what I was hearing as a citizen was that we need aid to be able to answer when we are put into a corner, and to be able to do that. And I would love to see if you could put together a packet of every single work you put together. You know, I'm glad that, you know, we've had 8 public statements and 6 press releases, but it'd be great to see the totality of that work, to see exactly, I know I could either go to Chrissy or Kim to kind of put that together, but I'd love to see what that looks like, because it's great that, you know, I think it's great that we're focusing on Metro Detroit and making sure that we have, you know, CBS coming in and doing stories, but what is our relationship with our local press, with the Daily, the Post, you know, WILX, WLNS, you know, those are sometimes the ones that are at the core of what's going on in our community. And, you know, could you explain a little bit like what your relationship has been building with them and that piece?
I'm going to start with one statement that you said. We saw what happens in this city when there's an uncontrolled statement go out. We saw, it's the reason why I'm here.
Yes.
I'm starting to get a little bit
Excuse me,
emotional.
hold on
Wait,
one second.
no, wait.
Hold on one second. Like, I'm not saying an uncontrolled statement. I'm saying that we are working with you directly in order to put something together. And that's the reason that it seems that you were brought in to help us not do that piece of it. And I believe we've been listening to your counsel since that point. What I'm asking is, like, if we get to a point where we do need something, what does that strategy look like? What does that timetable look like? How do we engage with you at that point? I get it. In the past, that was the issue. But what I'm asking about right now is, how do we prepare for the future?
I'm happy to put that together as part of the communications plan and communications plan. I will also put together all of the materials and I'll print that out for you that we've done this. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Does that happen to be in your packet that you've presented or that you have up there that you'll be able to share with us some of that information?
I will print out all of those.
Okay.
The packet, the report, full report, has a summary of all the summary of media clips that represent the bulk of what we've accomplished this year.
That's good. That's good for me.
Any other comments? Okay. We look forward to that report. And do we have any other discussion points? Okay. Thank you very much for being here this evening.
Thanks.
Appreciate the
Thank
presentation.
you.
Yeah, thanks for all your help, appreciate it.
Switch back over here to the agenda.